like to call to order the meeting of the Subcommittee on Taxis, Limousines, and Rideshare. Tonight, joining us on the committee is Councilor Manning Martin and Councilor Charis. Also in attendance is Councilor O'Neill, Councilor McGinn, Councilor Mitsoulas, Councilor Rossignol, Councilor Melville, Councilor Turco, and Councilor Gould. We have one item before us, and this was a kind of a continuation from last year, and this is to draft a taxi cab ordinance. And at this time, I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Cohane to come up and surmise what happened last year, where we left off, and where we're looking to go tonight. Deputy Chief.
Good evening. Do you want me to recap, or?
If you could, just
Okay.
do it now.
As a reminder, we're looking to find a way to control the out-of-town taxis that seem to have found a home in Peabody, particularly the North Shore Mall. Rights on there. They're not a Peabody taxi. You good? So we're looking to allow a limited amount of taxi cabs in cities and towns that are contiguous to Peabody to come in here lawfully and to be regulated so that we can control them. Right now, they come in here at will, and it's really hard for us because, like I explained before, an out-of-town taxi can lawfully come to Peabody provided that they are coming back to pick up the round-trip fare of a fare that originated in a city they're licensed in on the same day. So it's really hard for us. There's no way for us to determine that without stopping them. If we allow them in here, a certain amount of cabs, and we can inspect them and placard them, then we'll know that they belong here. There's still going to be those round trips ones, but these ones that are repetitive coming in here every day, every hour of every day, particularly the hours that the mall is open, we need somehow to control that, trying to protect the taxi cabs that are lawfully licensed in this city.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to open it up to the floor for any questions. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that you've done on this, Deputy Chief. I know it's been a long time. You've done a lot of work, and I know the idea behind this, the effort behind this, is to help the local taxi cabs maintain their business that they're lawfully operating in our city. So I appreciate the work that you've done. So you're requesting this ordinance change with this language. And how, just how, in a nutshell, how does this language give you the, if you just say it one more time, how does it give you the tools that you need to better enforce?
If they're licensed in the city of Peabody, we have inspection rights. We can call them down to inspect them. If there are complaints about them, we can lawfully bring them to us to investigate it, and then ultimately to you, who are the other licensing authorities. So there's nothing I can do to them. I can cite them for certain things, but if it gets to the point which, you know, we've seen in the past where they just ignore them, ultimately you can revoke their privileges. So we have no control over them right now. I can't call them down here. I have to go out there and find them committing the violation in my presence. And it's almost impossible to do.
Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Marty, very much for being here. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, rather. Thank you, Marty, for being here. So, Marty, to just close the loop on what you just said, I'm sorry, Deputy Chief, to close the loop on what you said, if they're in violation, you will then notify the council through the clerk that is
Well,
that
the first step is that we can cite them with an ordinance violation.
right?
Those go to the courts. Unfortunately, it's not a priority. They have many other things that they need to address, so they kind of get pushed to the side. So historically, nothing happens. They kind of just lay over there. If they ignore them, there's nothing really we can do. But under this, we can bring them here.
They being the court, if the court ignores them, right? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see any negative that you need help with, or is it?
No, there's only a couple of questions that you might have to ask and consider. The amount that you want to allow in here. You may want to limit it to maybe 2 cabs per company. We don't want to flood the city with from outside. And the other thing, I know this question always comes up, it's been posed to me many times. We like to have them here because of the excise tax. The truth of the matter is they're not buying new cars. And the excise tax that they would pay to the city is minimal, mostly $5, $10, $15, that's it. So you might want to blend that into the fee to balance it off so that there's fairness to the cabs that are registered here, but it's not a lot of money, certainly not enough to throw this out the window.
Thank you. So you mentioned 2 cabs per company. That's not in the ordinance right now, right?
No, but you limit the amount of, the ordinance limits.
That would be through the clerk?
Right, they'd have to write in if you want to put a cap or a ceiling on how many that you want to allow in here.
I think your recommendation of 2 is more than enough.
I would say 2 per company.
How many companies?
Well, there's probably a half dozen companies that we see in here regularly. There's 3 or 4 from Salem, a couple from Lynn. That's pretty much it. And we do see some Boston cabs here, but that's probably mostly drop-offs. I don't think that they're coming here to pick up fares. The cost would be outrageous.
Tim, sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you to the clerk. Tim, did you get the language that Marty recommends about 2 cabs per company?
We can add that in, yeah.
And what do we charge for a fee to operate in the city?
Well, we're proposing that right now, if you're licensed in the city of Peabody, there's for each license, if it's 1 to 8 passengers, it's based on rating. So 1 to 8, the fee is $35. Over 8, it's $50. For the non-city, we're proposing $60 and $75 per vehicle, depending on the passenger rating.
Per vehicle per year?
Yeah.
Council, that's also, on the second page on section 3, you'll see that. You'll see that language that reflects that. That's fine, just wanted, but on second page, it reflects that new language.
Thank you, Deputy, for being here. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Council Charest?
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Chief, is this something we can have support and help with from the mall itself, since that is private property? Could we have has there been discussions with them about, not allowing it's a trespassing issue to a non-conforming company?
We've never pursued that, but the mall, in my experience, is willing to work with us in anything we suggest. So my guess that Mr. Whiting would be happy to do that if we requested it.
Would that be helpful to you for this?
I'd have to ask for a legal opinion on that. I don't know if we can lawfully exclude a company from, the mall is a strange place. It's defined as, you know, the public has a right of access as licensees and invitees. So that's a gray area. I'm not positive that we could do that, but we certainly could, you know, if we stopped a cab, and I've had the same driver that I've stopped multiple times, and I get the no English response, but I know he understands. So certainly could ban him, and the mall has given us authority to ban people on their behalf, especially if we're there on a detail or on a special assignment. So it's something we could explore.
Yeah, because I can't imagine, Mr. Whiting does amazing work for the city. He's always willing to do everything for whatever we asked. And that for them to say to a vendor who's actually conducting business on their property, right, that you're not welcome because they can't follow the rules that we're doing. Just a suggestion to the chair that you might want to reach out to the mall to say, listen, can you support us with this? If we come to you and we say this company is not part of the organization, the group we have, that they can be sent a notice of no trespass. I know dropping off is a totally different story, but starting the route, starting your business there. And again, I don't want to make more work for you. I'm just looking for a tool for you to be able to utilize if the mall's willing to do also. To the chair.
Thank you. Just want to point out a couple of items to the councils here. So if we look at the ordinance where it says non-city taxi cab company, understand that we're talking about companies that abut us, and that's covered in the language where it says with a regional dispatch center from communities directly abutting the city of Peabody. So it would be just the cities and towns that abut Peabody. I will make a motion to make that 2 cars per cab company, as Deputy Chief Cohane has recommended. I'll ask for a motion on that. I just want to go a little bit further down the ordinance. If you notice under Section 2, we're striking the fines of the first, second, and third offense that you see, and we're replacing it with the penalty as enumerated under Section 1-10 entitled General Penalty. Clerk Spanos has informed me the penalty now will be 300, and revocation. So there will not be a first, second, and third of 75, 125, and 250. We're striking that language. We're going with 300, revocation. We covered the fees under Section 3. And the last piece that I'm going to recommend in a motion, I discussed with Deputy Chief Cohane, was just like we do with the used car licenses, that we come up with some type of a decal so that those companies will have a decal, so that'll make the job of enforcement much easier. So the police officers will be looking for that decal. If that decal is not there, that'll pretty much tip off for enforcement purposes. Just want to throw those 2 things out there. So I'll be looking for a motion. The motion would be for a maximum of 2 cars per cab company and the implementation of a decal for any of those cabs that are licensed, that will be licensed to operate in Peabody. One question, Deputy Chief. Would you like, as far as inspection, do you see cars now, when they do get, do you see cars before they get their, I don't know what they get now, their certificate, or no? They just get their license from, their certificate from Tim, and they're off and operating?
Whenever Tim issues a license or reissues a license, they're required to come down to us, and we inspect them, and then we have all of the decals. So they come to us, we give them the once over, and if they pass, then they get their decal.
And would you like to see a decal? So right now, you're just giving out decals companies that operate in Peabody, correct?
Yes.
Would you like to see a different, I'm going to just say color decal for the abutting communities, or would you like it to be the same? What would you like to see?
I think Tim and I can work that out.
Okay,
Probably something a little different than the ones that are licensed that reside here, maybe a different color.
very good. Councilman Manning Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are excellent suggestions, Council Sasslaw. Would you like me to make the motion to approve the ordinance change as written, as recommended by the Deputy Chief, to include your suggestions? So moved?
I would.
So moved.
You've heard the motion. Any questions on the motion? There being none, can I have a vote of the subcommittee? And if approved, it will then be advertised to adopt.
Councilor Sasslaw, Manning Martin,
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Sasslaw.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you, officer. And while we just have a couple of minutes, you'll notice that the committee was changed, the name, to also include ride shares. And just to touch upon that briefly, Council President Turco, in his foresight, knows that we're going to obviously have questions about that, probably from the general public. Just to set the record straight, we as a community cannot enforce, we have no enforceable rights with the rideshare, Lyft, and Uber being the two most popular. Those enforcement issues and any revenues generated, they're always done at the state level. Right now, and you'll see in your packet tonight, we collect a fee of 20 cents that goes into a fund, and you'll see there's a request from the mayor to use those funds for some boards tonight. But I just wanted to explain that, to everybody. And if you're asked by your fellow constituents that, that is enforceable at the state level. One thing, positive thing that has come up is there's a bill that's being sponsored by State Senator Creighton out of Lynn, I believe is a representative of State Senator out of East Boston, a third. They are requesting an increase in that amount. It was $6.05. I don't think they're going to get $6.05 per ride, but if they can get to $1.50 or $2, that'd be great for the city, obviously. But I just feel I want to share that information with you and explain to you. If I don't have any further questions, motion to close. Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed to vote? Closed. Thank you.